Yeah, welcome to another episode of the Pick Six Show. We are proud partners of the Underdog Podcast Network. We are also on Underdog TV. You are watching us. If you are watching us, subscribe. If you're listening to us, subscribe. Like, comment, that stuff all helps. You're listening and watching Sean and Brad. Brad, how's it going, man?
I'm fantastic, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Just to remind our listeners, this is the second episode of the season, second episode of really the show history at this point. What we do, it's not rocket science. We pick our favorite six bets against the spread of the week. We do the Get Paid podcast earlier in the week where we kind of preview the games, and then Brad and I put our heads together and we pick our favorite bets. Last season,
Sean,
yeah.
Even though it's not rocket science, we still managed to not pick six the first week.
The first week, somehow on the Pick Six podcast, we picked 5 games. Let's just chalk it up to first show jitters. I don't know how we ended up doing it, but the good news, Brad, the good news is that we made money.
That is correct,
We
sir.
were 3-2 in those 5 bets in the Pick Six podcast.
We were 3-2, and I just need to say we did not take the Green Bay game, correct?
We didn't. We
and
loved
I'm
it.
surprised we did not.
No,
Why
you
did
know
we
what
not do
happened?
that?
I ended up in the hospital. You remember?
That's right.
So what ended up happening, plus we record these, generally we record these on like Fridays. We're recording a little earlier this week, which we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, we didn't take Green Bay, which we loved. So we actually started the season 1-0 in our agreements. We agreed on 9 games last week. We were 5-4. You know, it's a week one. It's lackluster. Sure. My picks actually, because I use a computer kind of algorithm to help me make my picks. It's not the only thing I do, but you know, it's part eye test, it's part computer stuff. So it helps me make my picks. My computers were kind of off. You know, it takes a couple of weeks of data. Basically, you know, I get better between weeks like 3 and 16, 3 and 17. That's my hot season. So to start 3-2, I was very happy with that. I was in another pick'em contest. I started 4-1 in that one because I brought the Rams game in, which you didn't completely love. So Brad and I think we were either at 500 or above 500 individually. Together, we were better than that. And then, you know, our percentage was better on the Pick Six podcast. So that's what we do. My daily fantasy sleepers from last week, a couple of them hit big. A couple of them kind of flamed out. Kirk Cousins only throwing the ball 10 times actually hurt.
That was weird. How can you go the whole game only throwing 10 times? What is that?
Man, they just dominated physically. They dominated Atlanta. And Dalvin,
so they just ran the entire time?
And you know
what? That's the only other choice.
The funny thing is, like, Dalvin Cook, like, I think he only had 21 carries. So you figure like Kirk Cousins and Alexander Madison, who I like quite a bit, I think he had 7 or 9 carries. You're talking about like basically your running backs getting about 28 carries, your quarterback throwing the ball 10 times. That's just a ball control game at that point, man.
That's bizarre.
It was such a weird. Because every week, you know, to feed my daily fantasy projections and my betting stuff and all that, I take the stats in every week, and I actually manually, I don't scrape because I like to go in there and I like to look at the stats. And so rather than get like a service to come back or scrape the data and everything, I go into the game book on NFL.com and I look at the game book. And when I saw it, I thought that maybe the game book was wrong. Because I saw 10 throws from Cousins, and I was expecting to see like 30 or 40 carries, and there was only like, you know, 28 combined carries or something like that. I was like, holy.
Atlanta doesn't go, hey, they're running all over us. Let's stack the box.
I think that's the problem. I think they were doing that.
I mean,
and let's face it, Cousins, when he threw the ball, he was 8-10 and had a touchdown to Thielen over the top. I mean, Minnesota really imposed their will. That's why I know we're not going to use them this week, but that's why I kind of like them against Green Bay. Not so much because of Thielen and Diggs, who I love, but their ability to run the ball last week. I'm really curious to see how they go. You know, it's because Minnesota's offense did whatever they wanted to do against Atlanta.
Well, here's the thing that happens in week one, right? I mean, everyone likes to label good, bad, bums, awesome, right?
Yeah.
Everyone loves to do that. We're all prisoners of the moment. So my thinking is Minnesota had a great game and they dominated.
Right.
Okay. Are they going to do that again? No. Kirk Cousins is going to have to throw, right? They're going to come back down to earth. And another thing, is Miami going to be the dumpster fire that we saw week one?
Yes. In week 2, yeah, they will be. We'll get to that in a bit. I know we're you and I are on opposite sides of the spectrum.
That can't be possible. It can't be possible.
Well, like I said, last week we agreed on 9 games, and both of us were surprised that we agreed on so many games. And then this week we actually literally only agreed on 6, and some of the games that we agreed on we don't love. So we're going to let everybody know as we work our way through the games. We're not actually going to bet all the games this week. We're not going to put our money on every single game, but we are going to pick them. If we're not going to put our money on it, we're going to let you know. We're not going to bet on every single game this week. And I have a couple of candidates, kind of some late, some of the lines moved, Brad, this week, which I'll update everybody on too as we go through it. And then, I have some late candidates to kind of talk and maybe debate, because we were on the fence about a couple of things, and I feel a little bit stronger about some stuff. So, I've reconsidered a couple of things, but. Let me say, we're recording on Thursday. So last week we talked about and we did some analysis on the Thursday night games, and that will be the norm. But Brad's actually traveling this week. And what are you flying out today, tonight, tomorrow? What is it?
Tomorrow night, late evening, around 5 o'clock. I fly to your city, buddy.
Oh, that's right. You're going to be here. You're going to be in Chicagoland. Yeah. What are you going to be doing? You're going to be watching the Packers game with some family, right?
I am. I'm going to meet my cousin and my uncle, and my mother's going to meet us there as well.
Okay.
And I don't know how close we're going to be to you.
What city are you going to be in?
The last time I was an hour and a half from you. Remember that when I drove to you from my cousins? But he moved. So it is possible that he moved an hour closer to you.
Tell me what the city is, because if you're going to be in like on the weekends, I'm not really doing much until Sunday. Sunday I'm going to be glued to the TV, obviously.
Well, I know this crew, man, and we're going to be partying, especially Saturday. Make no mistake about it. So I'll just leave it as a possibility. I'll find out what city.
Yeah, I'll talk to the wife, see if we want to make it a little family outing just to say hey. But, I'm going to see you in a couple weeks anyway in Miami for all the games. So if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If it does, it does. So anyway, sorry we don't have any Thursday night commentary about Cam Newton and Jameis Winston squaring up. Brad, you shared an interesting stat with me before the show. You want to get into that one?
Yeah, the leader for the most consecutive games lost by a quarterback would be Cam Newton at 7.
Yeah, and when I was looking, because you asked me the trivia question over text, and I thought about it, and I was like, his name came to mind, but I thought certainly Carolina could have won a game late in the season last year. I was surprised by that. I am surprised as well. I don't remember them losing 6 straight to end the season. Right, and actually that's what kind of eliminated him from me, is I don't remember them going on that losing streak. The ones that came to mind for me were Case Keenum, because I know he was quarterbacking the Broncos, so I thought Keenum, and then he lost in week 1. So I was trying to think of teams that were bad last year. I thought about Derek Carr, but obviously he won. I was thinking about these teams. I thought Eli Manning. I actually typed it out, but then I took it back.
Yeah, I was thinking of all the bums too. I thought maybe San Francisco for a sec. I didn't know what they did to end the year. They weren't that bad, but I know.
Yeah, but Garoppolo only had a couple of games, and then he went.
Yeah, they had the third stringer in, so maybe they were a possibility. But I guess the reason, I saw this on a TV show this morning, and the reason they asked is because it's a curve. It's like it's someone you really wouldn't think of.
Yeah, right.
But it makes me so happy, the answer. I can't stand that guy.
Yeah, well, I think the Panthers are going to be better. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is a world beater. I think, the guy that they drafted, Greer, I think his name is. I think he was a West Virginia quarterback. It's interesting because, going into the 2018 college football season, I think he was on everybody's big board, top quarterback on the board and all that stuff. And I think he had a bad year. Maybe it was 2 years ago he was at. I do remember him being the top quarterback on a board somewhere. Maybe it was 2 years ago. I don't remember. But Carolina ended up with him. He didn't look bad in training camp. And then you look at a guy like Gardner Minshew, who took over for Nick Foles in week 1 of the NFL season, and he goes 22. These guys that are unheralded, these college quarterbacks are coming in just more ready to play now because of all the camps that they go to, in the offseason and all that stuff. They're just more prepared. So it's going to be interesting. I'm curious to see. I think Gardner Minshew is going to have a tougher week. I can't remember who Jacksonville's playing. I'll look it up. Houston. I think he'll have a tougher week. Yeah, man, it's going to be interesting.
Here's the thing, man. This happens all the time. I've seen this over and over. Especially during Packer games. When we injure the starting quarterback, the backup comes in and just tears us.
The Redskins do that for years, man. They made careers in backup quarterbacks.
And I think it's because you haven't prepared for them. There's no film. You don't know their tendencies. You don't know what they like to do. And all these things matter.
Yeah.
So I think now knowing, what's this guy's name? Minshew?
Gardner.
And Minshew,
everybody's favorite Gardner.
Everyone's favorite Gardner. Who are they playing against again?
Houston.
So Houston knows he's starting. They're going to have a week to look at his college film. And I think that's what causes these guys to come in during the game and have some success, in my opinion.
Yep, understood. and agreed. So tonight, just to rehash, well, I guess you know what, because this show's going to air after the game, so it's no point in actually even talking about the game. Let's just move it on to the Sunday games. No. Before we do that, let's do Brad. I'll go to the teaser next, but let me do my daily fantasy budget plays. My favorite six daily fantasy budget plays. First one at quarterback. I picked 6 players: 1 quarterback, 2 receivers, 2 running backs, and a tight end. My first one is Derek Carr. He's at $5,100 on DraftKings right now. I like him for a couple of reasons. One, they have a running game that is going to be utilized quite a bit, and I think that's going to open some things up in play action. 2, I think Kansas City is going to be able to score on Oakland, and I think that Oakland's going to have to score to be in the game. So, like we saw last week with Matt Ryan and Kyler Murray getting some late touchdown passes, if that ends up happening this week, and the Raiders are down, they're going to be throwing the ball. I think Carr can get in there. 3, he was efficient in week 1 against the Broncos, and the Broncos, I think, aren't that bad of a defense at all, as we talked about last week on this show. That was one of the games we missed, Brad, in our picks last week. Frankly, I think we should have won it because Denver was in the red zone quite a bit. But Oakland, man, you got to credit them. Their defense came out, played fast, and we'll see how that continues. I'm looking to see kind of what continues to happen in the NFL in week 2. And then, once, like I said, weeks 3 through week 16 are really earning season for us. And then another one is he's pushing the ball downfield, which he didn't really do last year. He's taking shots. He's got a tight end to throw to. He has some receivers. So I like Derek Carr at a $5,100. I think that's a good value. At running back, usually I try to stay in the $5,000 budget range, but Austin Eckler at $6,100, you got to go with this guy. He got 3 touchdowns last week. He's catching the ball. With the Chargers, who we'll be talking about a little bit later, they're missing Hunter Henry now. Their tight end went out with a knee injury. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. Mike Thomas is questionable at this point. Don't know. The coach is concerned about it. So Eckler, he's going to be involved in the passing game again. 6,100. He's a starting caliber guy. I think he put up over 40 points in DraftKings last week. I think another 20 to 30 is a reasonable expectation this week in their matchup. We have, Marlon Mack is somehow only at 5,900. NFL leading rusher. They're playing Tennessee, tough defense, don't get me wrong. But Nick Chubb, when Cleveland ran last week, got yards. And I think this offense is going to go through Mack, and I think he's a good one to have, especially at that budget. So I can tell you, I'm going to have a lot of lineups with Eckler and Mack at that value, 6,100, 5,900. Give me that all day. At receiver, we get a little bit more obscure. I like Brad. You saw what happened last week with Deshaun Jackson in Washington, right? Yeah,
Body
man.
dog.
Yeah.
Deshaun.
And so,
that guy's been around forever, huh? Taking the top off defenses for a long time now.
Long time. And, I'm not going to take Jackson this week because, it's a Monday. I usually end to take the Sunday games in daily fantasy. But what I saw was that Washington has, I think, probably a deficiency with over-the-top guys with their secondary coverage. I think Washington versus Dallas this week, I think this gives Michael Gallup, who got a lot of targets, a lot of yards last week, I think this gives him the opportunity to get some big plays in the end zone. I think he will find the end zone this week. He's only at $5,000 in DraftKings, so I like him there. And then another guy, McCole Hardman. Now that Tyreek Hill is out, the big question is, what's Kansas City going to do at receiver? To me, the most similar guy to Tyreek Hill on that squad is Hardman. He's a guy that's going to be the over-the-top guy. He's going to be the guy that in the route tree is going to hopefully open things up for Sammy Watkins. But I like Hardman to get behind defenses this week. He is only at $4,800 on DraftKings. I think that's good value. And then let me close this out with Virgil Green at tight end. Like I said, Hunter Henry is out. Virgil Green for the Chargers is only at $2,700. You can't really get a lot of cheaper guys than that in daily fantasy. So he's going to have some opportunities, and especially if Mike Thomas doesn't play, you have Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, and Virgil Green and Travis Benjamin in the passing game. And I do think the Chargers will have a pretty decent week. So there you go. There's my 6 once again to clean this up. Derek Carr, Austin Eckler, Marlon Mack, Michael Gallup, McCole Hardman, and Virgil Green. So Brad, you want to take it away with the teaser? Who would you tease this week?
I would love to take it away. All right, I got 3 teams on my board. All right, so what is that Miami spread again? Are we talking 19?
It actually went up. It's 19.5. No, it went down. I'm sorry. It's 9. Wait, let me look. No, it's 19.5. It went from 19 to 19.5, so it went up.
19.5, so I'll move that one 6 or 7 points. to make it, what, 26.5?
I still wouldn't take the Dolphins
I think
in that
you're
game.
out of your mind, man.
I know it's more points than I can remember seeing in a spread, but I still wouldn't take that game, even with the tease. But okay, keep going.
All right, so I love that one, and it's funny because we actually have dissension on that one.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to let you influence me. Not anymore, Sean.
Don't succumb to the peer pressure.
You've been getting me in trouble for years. Okay, also, I'd like to tease Baltimore is a 13.5-point favorites. I would like to tease them down to 6.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. That's a nice, safe one.
Yeah, I think those two are great. I think Baltimore is the best one of the week by way of teaser. Also, I'd like to take Pittsburgh, which is a 4-point favorite, and make them a 3-point underdog at home versus Seahawks. I like that. And those are my 3 teasies.
So Baltimore, was that minus 6.5 is what you wanted it to be?
Yeah, if you moved it 7 points. Let's say we move them all 7 points.
Yeah, okay. And then the Dolphins go up to 26.5. Which I still wouldn't do. The only thing that's going to save, as we talked about on the Get Paid podcast. By the way, if you're not a subscriber of that, it's really good. We go a lot more in depth into all the games. We do like the daily fantasy projections and all that. But what we talked about in that game is, I think the only thing saving this from like a 50-10 type game for New England is that they have some familiarity with that the coach there and the coaching staff. They all came over from New England. Brian Flores. I don't think they'll run the score up super high, but I still wouldn't feel comfortable taking that 26.5, man.
All right. Listen, there's one thing that you're forgetting, I think, is every year, New England has a tough time in Miami.
You're right. Period. You are right about that. But it's a different regime. I don't know, man. Let me just say, I just don't feel comfortable. And I'm not letting you influence me on this one.
All right. It's a different year. It's different teams. I give you that. The past does not equal the future. However, I still like it. Yep. 26.5, man. Can I feel any safer than that?
I don't. I think you could. I think you could do it for 35.5.
Well, can you buy 13 points?
I don't know. Whatever the cost is, I still wouldn't do it. I don't care. Yeah. This line could be 50, and I don't think I would bet on my. No, we played this game. Like, what would it take? What would it take for me to bet on Miami this week?
You said 27 or something like that.
Yeah. Let me push that up to 30. Ooh, I like that shift down in the camera, man. Framing your face out, buddy. I love it. Good deal. All right, let's dig right into these games. And we got 6 for you. I think the first 3 we feel, maybe even 4 we feel pretty good about, and then we're really kind of scratching to get that 6th pick. But let's just go with the first one of the week: Arizona versus Baltimore. At this point, Brad, it was 13.5 when we talked. It's actually down to 13 now, so it went actually in our favor because Brad and I are taking the Ravens. Can you see?
I think this is the pick of the week.
Yeah, we never, like we were saying earlier in the week, we never take big point spread games. Once you have to get to like 2 touchdowns to cover, it makes us uneasy. But man, like here's my thing. Kyler Murray, we saw what Detroit's defense did to Kyler Murray early in the game, and Brad and I, we've been talking about this in the preseason. He's a young quarterback. This offense wants to throw these short, 5 to 6 yard routes, maybe even 3 to 5 yard routes, kind of hit receivers on the run, give them a chance to go. But the thing is, they're not throwing a lot of balls over the middle. Like when you see Tom Brady throw those slants, Brad, to like Edelman, he's over the top, over the line of scrimmage. He's throwing the ball to the middle to like Edelman, and he's catching it on a slant. Well, Kyler Murray being short, it's a little...
Dude, I'm sorry. I never saw a quarterback look so small.
Yeah,
I'd never seen that before. It was weird. And it sucks for him because I'm sure he's super athletic.
Dude, like his arm, he's got a cannon for an arm. He might have one of the stronger arms in the league, but
I know. I just don't think I don't think the odds are that it's going to work. That's all.
Yeah.
And I'm basing this on his height and his height alone.
Like, we saw Doug Flutie at the end of his career. He got a little spry when the Chargers were still in San Diego. They were wearing the dark blue helmets back then. We saw him, Flutie work as like a backup quarterback in New England. Those short guys, man. The problem is like, because I know a lot of people are like, I'm so sick of hearing you guys short. The thing is, like, when you're throwing the ball, and I've said this in a couple of different podcasts and a couple different shows now. When you're 5'9" or 5'10", whatever he is, he's like 5'9", I think, and you're trying to throw the ball over an offensive tackle on a slant that's 6'7", and the defensive lineman 6'4", and can push off the offensive lineman, jump up and bat the ball down. Kyler Murray had a lot of balls batted down and batted up last week that weren't intercepted. Now
I'm sure, and they're gonna get intercepted, right?
At some law of averages, man, they're gonna get picked. And when those balls get batted up, and it's the Ravens we're talking about, they've been strong on defense for 15 years, give or take, maybe more at this point. The Ravens, they're going to be a good team, and they're going to be opportunistic. I think that this week is a definite pick six, maybe multiple pick six candidate week for Murray.
Yes, and here's the thing, Sean. What's to stop these defensive linemen from not rushing him? Why expend all this energy rushing him? Why not just keep your head on a swivel and jump up and right? That seems to be a great strategy, because these guys are 6'6", 6'7" on the defensive line.
Yeah.
And they're just mountainous men, man. And they just, put your hands up.
I think to combat this offense, and we've seen it. I'm not saying anything that's we haven't already seen backed up on tape. Is the Ravens and what we saw the Lions do, they're going to crash up on the line of scrimmage. They're going to try to take away those short routes. The middle of the field, short, isn't open at this point until Murray can figure out how to get some windows to throw it. And if you're a team that's trying to do the Patriot type thing, this ball control passing offense, if you can't work the middle of the field and the short, it's a challenge. And so what I'm worried about from a fantasy point of view, I know this isn't a fantasy football show too, but once you start having your 8 defenders in the box, crashing the line of scrimmage, you have your defensive backs, on the side. They're not in the box, but they're short. Well, what does that do to David Johnson out in the flat? David Johnson, you running those kind of wheel routes over the middle. It takes those away too. So these Murray, it's almost like the Cardinals are going to have to spread out their offensive linemen a little bit more so that he can slide in the pocket and throw the ball. Mm-hmm. I just don't think playing against Denver, I think Arizona will have some games and this offense will settle in and it'll be a good offense. I'm not throwing too much shade at them, but early in Murray's career, playing a team like the Ravens, after we saw what the Lions did to them for about 3.5 quarters, I think that Arizona's going to have a hard time scoring in the first 3 quarters like they did last game. Maybe if Baltimore goes to prevent or something like that, they can they can get some points up. But like I said, the pick six potential's out there. It's out there. Hey, pick six. It's the show, baby. We're talking pick sixes. It's out there. I think that the Ravens' defense scores this week, and I think the offense on the Arizona's going to have a challenge. And we haven't even talked about the offense on the Ravens, how good they looked.
I know.
This was. I think I might have actually texted you on Sunday. If not, we were talking about it on Monday when we talked, or Tuesday when we talked. But this offense, the lining Jackson up in the pistol, he didn't even really run. I don't know if this is an element where they're going to try to have him run or if they're going to try to have him be a passer. Honestly, I don't think it matters, because everything the Ravens wanted to do last week against Miami, they could do. Marquise Brown looks fantastic. I think he's going to be a star. Lamar Jackson has really stepped up his passing game. I think he's really ascended. I can't say enough about how good this team looked last week. Greg Roman is offensive coordinator. I've been saying it since they moved him into that position. Is a slam dunk hire for this system. They can beat you running the ball. I know Ingram is banged up. I think he'll probably play, but even if he doesn't, you have Justice Hill and Gus Edwards. This team's going to be able to run. They're going to be able to throw the ball. That's the biggest thing, man. He looked like a slightly bigger version of RG3 in RG3's rookie season, which was his best season in the NFL. Hitting those things over the middle, hitting things over the top. He was just deadly accurate. For a while, he was 7-7 for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, this team is a strong team, and Tucker hits his field goals too, man. There's not a weakness on this whole squad. There's not. To me, at this point, they're probably my division favorite. I'm not going to overreact yet because I still like Pittsburgh. I'm not overreacting to that loss. Right. But that's a good one, man. So once again, Brad and I think our favorite pick of the week, one we will be spending some money on, the Baltimore Ravens. So there you go. And I do have every single mini helmet, but thanks to the team switching their helmets, I have to get a new Dolphins helmet. But I'm not going to be picking them this season.
Oh, they switched theirs, huh?
They just same colors, same kind of look, but they switched their Dolphin a little bit. And the Titans went to a dark blue helmet. I still have their white helmet. There might be another one out there, so I have to spend $90 in freaking new helmets. Advertising dollars. So why isn't anybody advertising on our show yet? We're freaking awesome. We're freaking awesome.
That we are, my boy. That we are.
Okay, next game on the docket here for us, we have Chicago. Brad, the line has moved. Chicago opened up as 1.5-point favorites. They are now 3-point favorites against the Chicago's 3 points favorites against the Broncos. Broncos at home, Chicago on the road. And Brad and I are taking we're going there. 2 weeks in a row, we're going. Brad, I tell you what. Why don't you lead off this one with your thoughts on the game?
This isn't one of my favorites. I just think that a team that had lost on the road and coming back to win to play their home opener, I think the odds are in their favor no matter what teams they are.
Right.
You have to lean that way. Plus, you make them underdogs, okay? And Flacco is going against a great defense. But if there's anybody that knows how to play against great defenses, it's him.
Right.
True. And he's faced them all his career. He was on Baltimore and he's faced them in practice, I'm assuming. He knows what he's doing. The game is not too big for him. And I think it's an insult to these guys to be underdogs at home to the friggin' Trubisky-led Bears.
Yeah.
I think that's insanity. I think the spread should be Denver by 3. To be honest, and I think Vegas whiffed on this one, which is why we have to take Denver.
Yeah, so let me just kind of sum up. There are some injury issues with Denver. They lost Juwan James, kind of the best offensive lineman they had probably. They lost him, at least for this game. He's got a janky knee, so I don't know that he's going to be back. Actually, I think he's already been ruled out for week 2. That's a concern when you're talking about, like, hey, you can line Khalil Mack up on either side of the defensive line when you're going against somebody. And the Raiders were feasting on that right tackle last week, but I think he'll be practiced up and coached up this week. Another angle I like in this game is that Fangio, basically head coach for and runs the defense for Denver. Fangio knows Trubisky from running the Bears defense last year. He knows the personnel, he knows the strengths and the weaknesses. And that's one of those things that, bettors often miss, in my opinion, is the coaching staff changes in the familiarity, right? I don't think it's as big of a factor this week with Flores in Miami and New England, but I do think it'll be a factor with frustrating Mitch Trubisky. So I think that the Bears are going to try to run the ball. So I think this will be probably a little bit of an uptick for like David Montgomery, Mike Davis, maybe Terry Cohen will be used a little bit more in the running game. I don't think he had a carry last week. But, the passing game is what concerns me, Brad. Allen Robinson was the only guy who did anything last week, I think, on that offense last week. Denver was able, they had some matchup issues, but I think they'll be able to do a little bit better this week. Another thing is Denver, Oakland, people who probably watched, like in the East Coast and in the Midwest, if they watched the first half of that game, Denver looked awful. But if you watch the second half, Denver did outplay the Raiders in that second half. They were in the red zone constantly. They couldn't really punch it in. Look, are they more likely to punch it in against the Bears defense? Probably not. But I'm with you, man. This line's going up. Vegas, for some reason, likes Chicago. They liked Chicago last week. You and I picked Green Bay last week. And that wasn't a homer pick for you either. We just liked the teams better. It ended up shaking out that way. I just like Denver. I think that their offense is going to improve. It started really, really slow in the first half. It picked up steam. As I complained about and get paid, Philip Lindsay is just an electric player. So is Emmanuel Sanders. If they can get those guys a little bit more involved, push the ball downfield. Cortland Sutton's very good. I think Noah Fant will be more involved. I think Denver can get it done. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, maybe like a 17-14, 17-16, maybe a 20-17, somewhere around there. I'd probably be on the under on that game. But I do think Denver can cover that spread. So let's hope Flacco doesn't throw any pick sixes, Brad.
I think he's good to go, man. I think he's good to go. And who's the I don't even know the position anymore. The linebacker for Denver. What's that guy's name? That badass.
Oh, Von Miller or Bradley Chubb?
Miller.
Either one.
Yeah, right. And they're going to feast on Trubisky. And I know we're transitioning to the next game, but I think they're going to have a really fun time out there.
Yep. Let's move it on now, Brad. Third game of the week. We are going to get to 6 because I have them written down this week. Third game of the week, we have Seattle +4 at Pittsburgh. Brad and I like the Steelers.
Pittsburgh. Oh, yeah.
As bad as they looked on the road at New England to open the season, and they looked bad. We think they rebound at home, and this is not a slight to Seattle, but historically Pittsburgh plays better at home and worse on the road. Seattle's the same; they play better at home, worse on the road. Seattle had a hard time with Cincinnati, who Brad and I actually like. We think they're better than advertised. But I think that Chicago, they have a tough interior front. I think they'll be able to contain Russell Wilson. I like Chris Carson in this matchup. I do think he'll get some fantasy points. He'll have some movement. But I think that, Pittsburgh at home, I think that they'll rebound. I think Roethlisberger will rebound from his really kind of bad game. I will say, though, Brad, did you watch did you watch the entire New England-Pittsburgh game, or did you shut it off after it got out of hand?
I mean, I had it on, but I wasn't watching it. I had a bunch of people over, and it was out of hand, and nobody gave a shit after about, it was bad.
Did you see how slow Ben Roethlisberger looked?
I didn't really focus in on it, man.
Dude, I think Tom Brady can beat Ben Roethlisberger in a sprint these days. He looked
really. Well, he looks kind of fat, doesn't he?
He does. I don't know. Maybe
boy.
It's breakup weight with Antonio Brown, who's going through some serious stuff. Let's not make light of Antonio Brown.
Yes.
I think
weird. That he looks I know he's Big Ben, but he looks a little too big for my liking.
Yeah, too Big Ben.
Too Big Ben, I don't think that's good with his age, right? He's got to be in his mid to late 30s, right?
He should check out the video of us talking about intermittent fasting and.
You should. You want to keep yourself sprite, man. You want to keep your joints nice and light, right?
Yeah, he's shortening his career for sure. You see guys like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, Drew Brees are trying to get leaner. They're trying to get more mobility in their arm, more flexibility.
And he's just a big fat piece of shit. And but the thing about Pittsburgh, man, is you want to take a team that's just been embarrassed. Like any team worth a damn, and Pittsburgh is worth a damn. Mm-hmm. They were just embarrassed on national television, and if they have any gusto whatsoever, and I'd like to think they do, they're going to come back, and they're just going to right the ship immediately.
Yeah. And the Patriots always tend to bottle up the Steelers. You saw that they bracketed coverage, and they shut down Juju Smith-Schuster. That gave opportunities for other guys to succeed, like a Vance McDonald, like a Dante Moncrief, like a James Washington. Well, the problem, I thought, was Dante Moncrief didn't step up in that game. He had some opportunity as a fantasy player, and he didn't step up. I think going forward, James Washington will probably be the guy that they focus on. Again, I was talking a little bit earlier about Mecole Hardman kind of looking and being the most like Tyreek Hill of the backup receivers in Kansas City. I kind of feel like James Washington is the most like Antonio Brown in the way that he runs his routes and kind of blowing the top off the defenses. Obviously, he's not, right? He's not Antonio Brown, but that might be a good thing depending on what happens with these allegations. Holy crap. But James Washington, I think, will be there. James Washington actually had a deep pass down the sideline that for some reason he ran out of bounds. It seemed like he could have stayed in bounds. That was a little weak, I thought. But the big thing to me about that Patriots game with the Pittsburgh Steelers is that I thought Pittsburgh went 5 wide way too much. I think that they got a little bit too cute. They got away from James Conner, and maybe it was a reaction to the scoreboard because they were getting manhandled. But Conner had a decent stat line. He'll be fine. I think he's questionable this week, but I'm sure he'll kind of suit up and play there. I think Pittsburgh needs to rely on the run. If for some reason Conner doesn't suit up, I think Jalen Samuel is a great daily fantasy budget play for everybody because I do think Pittsburgh will stick to the run. And they do that. This offensive coordinator, I can't remember his name, but since he took over for Barfight Todd Haley, a couple of years ago, sometimes they'll just get away from the run. Sometimes they'll just ignore Conner, and Conner is a good running back. Sometimes they'll just ignore him and split him out receiver, go 5 wide too much. I don't think that'll be the case this game. I do think that Smith-Schuster might have a little bit of a challenge, but I do think he'll score better. I think that Washington will be featured a little bit more than Moncrief was last week, and I think the running game will uptick there. Seattle on their side, they have Carson, but like I said, I like Pittsburgh's defense. They gave New England's running game a little bit of a hard time last week. New England has a strong running game. Bless you, Brad. Bless you.
Thank you.
So we had they gave the running game a hard time. I think Carson will do okay, but not great. So that really leaves Russell Wilson throwing to Tyler Lockett at this point. I do think that DK Metcalf might have a better game, but I don't think it's going to be enough to deal with Pittsburgh, a very motivated Pittsburgh team. Now, here's the thing, though, Brad. If Pittsburgh loses this game, 0-2, losing at home, and just imagine if they get embarrassed, which, again, we don't think is going to happen.
Right.
But what happens if they get embarrassed?
I mean, Russell Wilson has embarrassed many of folk, right? I mean, it is a possibility.
He's a slippery
little bugger, isn't he? And obviously we don't think it's going to happen, which is why we're taking Pittsburgh. But it is definitely
Right.
possible. And if they go 0-2 embarrassed two weeks in a row,
Yeah, we're going to be sellers on Pittsburgh. You got to be. Got to be sellers.
gotta be, right? But listen, I think that it used to be the narrative that if you go 0-2, your season is doomed. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I really don't. You win a couple more, you're back to 500. Like you could easily be 6-4, 8 weeks later, and you're in the playoff hunt, know. And I think that the panic mode, if they do get embarrassed, calm down, but still, not good.
Not good. All right, let's move it to the next game. We have Philadelphia -2 at Atlanta. Brad and I are picking. Who are we picking? The Philadelphia Eagles. I don't
like this one at all.
You don't like this one? You like the No? You like the Falcons at home?
I don't like this game. And maybe we agreed on it, which is why we're putting it on the docket. Yeah, we did, but I don't.
You're out on this one now, huh?
Yeah, I want nothing to do with this one, and I don't feel great about it. I mean, Atlanta coming back home, I think they have just as likely a chance to cover. I'm sorry, this goes against the whole theme of the show, but I got to be transparent here.
You're killing me, Brad. All right, let's just push it. Let's push it to the next one then. Push it to the next one then. We'll do Detroit and the Chargers. Chargers -3 at Detroit, which I know you weren't the biggest fan of when we talked.
I am definitely not a fan of this one either. We agreed on it. I'm not as abhorrent towards this game as the last one we mentioned, but I don't love this one, man. I don't think Detroit is worth a you-know-what, but I like Phillip Rivers.
Going back to home. I like Phillip Rivers too, man.
Yeah.
The problem with this game, I think from the last time we picked it, is Hunter Henry going out. Now you're going to your backup tight end. Mike Williams could be out. Suddenly you basically have two of your 4 to 5 pass catchers on a given route out. That means defenses can focus a little bit more on Eckler, who I still think will have a fine game. But it's a little bit of a worry, right? I don't think I would bet this one at this point either. But it is a pick that we agreed on. So we'll track the success, but we're not going to bet it. Well, that takes us through our 6, man. But I have another candidate for you. I mentioned I have some candidates. Oakland and Tennessee, that line dropped to 7.5. If it drops to 6.5 by the end of the weekend, I'm going to take Kansas City.
Wait. What is it? You said Oakland and Tennessee. What is it?
I'm sorry. Oakland and Kansas City is what I meant to say.
So
Oakland
if it drops,
Oakland is getting 7.5 points.
And if it drops to 6.5,
if it drops to 6.5,
totally.
6.5. Yeah,
yes.
I think, even with the Tyreek Hill injury, like I said, Andy Reid's a smart coach. He'll get it going. And remember, he made the Super Bowl with Todd Pinkston, and I think Freddie Mitchell as his receivers along with Terrell Owens. So he's going to get things going. Sammy Watkins physically looks better than he has in previous weeks. I don't know that I'd take it if it's above a touchdown. I could probably go at 7 because I'd be fine with a push, Brad. But I think this should be a 7-point spread. We saw what happened in Monday nights, and the betting community, I think, is reacting to that. But I don't think you can keep Patrick Mahomes down, and I think Damian Williams has a return this game. He'll be quite well. McCoy will be involved, but I think Damian Williams will do well. And I think McCole Hardman, like I said, is a daily fantasy sleeper. Travis Kelce, they just have too many weapons, man. We've been saying it all preseason. If this thing drops to 7, which it might do, I will take the Chiefs, and it sounds like Brad will as well. So let's pencil that in. Remember this next week. If it drops by Saturday morning, Brad and I will insert this game. Another game I like, Brad. I think the line moved. Hold on, let me mess with my spreadsheet here. The line hasn't moved. It has stayed stable. Cleveland -3 at the New York Jets. We were just talking about how if you go 0-2, it doesn't necessarily mean your season's over anymore. In Cleveland's case, I do. Think that because of how tough and brutal the schedule is down the line, how Cincinnati is better than people thought. That might be a split scenario when everybody else is penciling in 2 wins. Pittsburgh, we'll see what happens this week. Brad and I both think they'll rebound. They were our preseason favorite to win the division. Baltimore is good, as we talked about. I will take the Browns, especially if this thing moves to like 2.5 points, just because to me it's a must-win game. I think you got to have it, but what do you think about that? If it gets to 2.5, it's at 3 now. If it gets to 2.5, would you take the Browns, or would you just be a stay away bet, Brad?
No. I would. Wait. Sorry, I got confused. We're not taking the Browns, are we?
We aren't, but that's who I would take if it drops to Cleveland -2.5. It's not one of our picks. It's a candidate to slip in there at the end of the week.
I don't want to start taking them, man. I dislike them greatly. I'm over them. I want to go against them in every way. 100%.
I have another candidate, one that we disagreed on from earlier in the week. I'm trying to sway you here, Brad. I'm trying to sell you on this one. I don't think I'm going to get you to budge on this one. Washington is missing their second quarterback. The line is still at Washington +6. I still like Dallas. In this game. I think Ezekiel Elliott's going to be more involved. I think especially if Washington's missing their second corner, Gallup, guys like Randall Cobb will pop off. Dak Prescott looked really good. How do you feel about that one at 6 points with Washington have a dinged up second cornerback there?
So Dallas is favored by 6 on the road at Washington.
6 on the road at Washington. So division home underdogs generally cover the spread too. So
I think Washington humbles them, man. I really do. I think this is a trap game for Dallas. Dallas is the type of team that hears their own accomplishments, right? Like they start feeling themselves real quickly.
Yeah,
you
right.
know?
Yeah.
And so as soon as they do that, they let off on the pedal by way of preparation, and they start thinking they're so damn great that nobody could ever possibly touch them.
Yep.
And I think that Washington humbles them. I like Washington in this one.
Here's another game, Brad, that we did agree on this one earlier in the week. I've had a change of heart. The line has not moved. No, I'm sorry, it has moved. It has moved actually in the favor of our bet. Buffalo Bills are -1.5 at the Giants. Originally, we picked the Giants. I've had a change of heart. I don't want to take this game at all. I don't love it. I think Josh Allen is not going to turn the ball over 4 times in the first half, or the Bills' offense won't turn the ball over 4 times in the first half. I think Singletary will be used more. I know it's Giants at home. I'm not going to take the Bills, but at the same time, I don't like the bet anymore. But what do you think about that? Are you still on the Giants, or are you kind of up in the air on that one as well?
Well, I don't love that one, but I would take the Giants for sure.
Yep. Let me just run through. We disagreed on New England. We talked about that. We actually disagreed on San Francisco, Cincinnati. I don't feel very strongly about that one either way. I like Indianapolis +3 at Tennessee, but again, it's division home underdog. Brad, you took Tennessee. I like Indianapolis a little bit more, but I don't feel strongly about it. One of the games I actually do feel strongly on that you can't bring yourself to bet against is Minnesota +3 at Green Bay. I just think Minnesota looks so much better than Green Bay did. I think they're a little bit ahead of them. I think by the end of the season, everything will be checked out, but that offense was, I know they were humbled. I know they were playing the Bears. That's an upset candidate for me as well.
Yeah, and if I wasn't a Green Bay fan, I would definitely agree with you, to be honest.
Come on, man. We're all about getting money here, man.
I know. I got a little homer in my blood. I'd like to think that the Packers can win their home opener, man. I think Aaron Rodgers in his home opener. That's my thinking.
I know.
Aaron Rodgers.
Once you start to say it out loud, Aaron Rodgers home opener in Green Bay.
Yeah, man.
Division game.
It's been a while since they started 2-0 with 2 solid wins under their belt, and I think they're due. It's been a few years since they started out with a nice, strong, sturdy
2-0 in the division against Chicago and Minnesota.
I just think they're due for that.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's where I'm coming from. But I will agree with you. They did not look as good as Minnesota, and they may not be as good as Minnesota right now. I totally get it.
Well, the offense has to be – that's the question. Is the offense going to play better in the second week? We'll see. Another game that we disagreed on, I felt pretty strongly about, but so did you, was New Orleans. The line has moved now. It's New Orleans +2.5. So the betting community is betting New Orleans. The money is going towards New Orleans because the line's moving. New Orleans +2.5 at the Rams. I like New Orleans in that one. I continue to. I think they want to come out and prove who the best team in the conference was from last season. I think that revenge factor goes on the road, and I don't think the Rams have a big home field advantage in their home opener there. So I'm going to take New Orleans, man. But are you still on the Rams?
This one I don't love.
Yeah, it's a toss-up, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes the best bet you make is the bet you don't make, right?
Yeah, right, for sure.
Yep. So this week, let's just sum up the picks that we like then. We like Arizona to lose. It's Arizona +13. We actually like Baltimore in that game. We like Denver +3 at home versus Chicago. Don't love it, but we like it. We'll bet that one. We like Pittsburgh -4 versus Seattle at home as well. And then we have some other ones we agree on, but we're not going to bet those games, I don't think. So that's it, man. You got any parting words for the audience there, Brad?
I got nothing to say to anybody.
You got nothing. Another inspiring quote from Brad. You put that one on a T-shirt. I think we could sell that one. I got nothing
to say to anybody.
One of these days we got to sit down. We got to live stream us watching Seinfeld episodes. I think that.
Let's everybody look out for that Miami game, and I would love to see which way people lean on this one.
I know, man.
That's the most interesting one for me of the week.
Yeah,
that's a lot of fun.
I'll be watching that one. What games are you going to watch this week? What's going to be on the TVs there?
Well, I'm going to be at my cousin's.
Well, of course, you're going to be watching Green Bay, Minnesota. I know you will. Let me look at my favorite games. I want to see what happens in Indianapolis, Tennessee. I think those are two strong but underrated teams. I'm going to be watching Baltimore this week. I had to watch that game on Game Pass to catch up on it. I want to watch them live this week. New England, Miami, I'm not going to watch live because I think it'll be a blowout, but I'm curious to see what happens there. Seattle, Pittsburgh for me is a big game. Dallas, Washington is a very interesting game for me to watch. Thank goodness I have the Sunday ticket and a bunch of TVs, so I watch, like 3 or 4 at a time. So I'm doing that. Yeah, man, it's going to be a good week. Tough week to bet as far as Brad and I are concerned, but I'm sure, we're going to have a lot more clarity coming out of week 2. We see kind of who the contenders and pretenders are. So we'll be looking forward to earnings season starting week 3 next week with the Pick 6 podcast. Hopefully we can get you money with our 3 favorite bets there. I expect probably a 3-0 or a 2-1. Well, I shouldn't say I expect, but that's kind of what we're looking for. And then next week, baby, it's earning some money, Brad.
Damn right, baby.
Burning a hole in the pocket. Put it out there. Put the bets out there. All right, everybody, tune in, subscribe, like us, comment. We'll be interactive. Have a great week. Go out, get paid, make some picks.